Welcome to the Improving Microsoft Fabric lunch conversation. It is exactly noon, and we still have some people streaming in, so I'm going to give everybody a minute or two to join. Welcome all. We still have some guests joining, so we're going to start here in another 2 minutes as people funnel in. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. We are going to start going. This session will be recorded for those that would like to review it afterwards. We will be taking questions. Feel free to use the Q&A. We'll answer those questions at the end of the presentation. If we do not get to your question, we will follow up with you afterwards to answer your question directly. Rob Ulasik is a VP with Improving and one of our lead Microsoft architects. He's been with Improving for 13 plus years and has consistently received accolades from both Microsoft and Improving's clients for his knowledge, insights, and dedication. Rob is a thought leader within the Microsoft space and is knowledgeable across the M365 and Azure landscapes. One of the things that I personally like most about Rob is his pragmatism regarding how tools can be used to drive meaningful business impacts. He brings both an historical perspective on the evolution of the Microsoft universe paired with a forward-looking view that explains the future functionality of these suites and where Microsoft is going with their vision. Without further ado, I will hand over to Rob.
Good afternoon. Welcome to our introduction to Microsoft Fabric. Be forewarned, there's a lot to Fabric. My goal is to give you a good 50,000-foot view of what it is and what it can do. We only have an hour. I could probably go on for days and still not cover everything. We will take a couple of breaks along the way to answer quick questions as time permits. If you have more involved questions, as Russ said, just contact us afterwards. Let's get started. So what is Fabric? Let's review some of the key concepts that make it so compelling. Good place to start is the official Microsoft definition. Wow, marketing department packed a lot in there. We'll just hit the highlights. Fabric is an all-in-one analytic solution with robust data security, governance, and compliance that uses a single integrated environment. In short, Fabric is Microsoft's latest evolution of cloud-native SaaS data analytics. Let's take a closer look. The goal is to create a one-stop shop for everyone involved with data analytics. It'd be better to use one tool instead of a whole bunch of separate tools and environments. With Fabric, everyone goes to the same place to use experiences that match their role. Everything from viewing and building reports to ETL and data manipulation to data science and working with real-time analytics. Each of these experiences are built on a common foundation. Serverless compute over a shared data lake. And these are built on Azure and integrated with Microsoft 365. The result, one unified technical platform that can be used by everyone. No more moving data between workloads, and it's a lot easier for different roles to work together. And it fits right in your digital workplace. Let's see how the different roles use the Fabric experiences. Many roles take part in the process of working with data analytics. In this chart, we show you some of the common user types of what Fabric experiences they'd likely use. Business users are usually the least sophisticated in terms of data and analytics. As they probably do today, their activity in Fabric will focus on using Power BI. Since Power BI is the front end for consuming reports, you'll see that it's the one experience used by all roles. Citizen developers are power users who are motivated to venture into building things on their own. Low and no code options in Data Factory and Data Activator give them tools to do so without needing a deep technical background. Data analysts and report developers are more savvy. They can also be productive working in the data warehouse and real-time analytics experiences. Data engineers are usually the most involved in the process, and they touch almost all the bases, and they get their own dedicated experience. Because they have the most complicated job, data scientists also get their own experience, and they're unlikely to need the low or no code tools. As you can see, while their jobs may be different, they all get value out of the same Fabric system. Earlier, I mentioned that Fabric was cloud native SaaS. What does that mean? Cloud services have evolved over time so we can get more value. We'll start with the early cloud. Cloud IaaS let us lift and shift in the future. What do we get? Cost savings. We spend less on servers, OS, licenses, networking, and environmental. Then we got flexibility and scalability, the ability to ramp up resources up or down to meet our needs. We got easy adoption. Expanding on the virtualization concept, we just move those VMs to the big server room in the sky. This is a great start, but with the focus on lift and shift to make it easy, innovation gets shortchanged. So we need more innovation. We evolved a cloud-native PaaS. This evolution was born in the cloud. Here we get to be server-centric. Instead of bulky VMs, we get focused component services that scale better, almost without limit. We get consumption pricing. Pay only for what you need when you need it. Big VMs and IaaS could be pretty expensive and will end up sitting idle when not needed. But the biggest advantage is amplified innovation. IaaS is reusing old technology, while PaaS opens the door to evolutionary new tools, real-time data, AI, machine learning, massively parallel processing, and more. Concepts that are impractical anywhere but in the cloud. So this is awesome. Now we've got all kinds of cool stuff, power that scales, but things just got very complicated. PaaS data platforms have dozens of components or more, each with their own skill set and learning curve. We need things to be easier to use. So we evolve again into cloud-native SaaS. Some call this software as a service. I prefer to translate to simplicity as a service. Cloud native becomes more simplified, unified, and accessible. Here we have lower complexity, fewer moving parts and skills to master. We have pre-built functionality, where a lot of the hard work's already been done for you. And citizen developers, we enable users to build value without a deep technical skill set. In the end, cloud native SaaS is easier to use, so you get faster ROI. Now let's see how Fabric, as cloud native SaaS, stacks up against the competition. How does Fabric match up? Let's break it down by category. First is what I call Cloud Titan PaaS. Big vendors like AWS, Azure, Google, IBM, all these offer a wide array of components that are powerful, but as a result, come with a lot of complexity. Really, it's apples to oranges when we try to compare Fabric. PaaS may be more powerful, but SaaS as a solution, but as a SaaS solution, Fabric will be easier to use. That was a mouthful. Next up, we have ERP add-on SaaS. Seems to be a prerequisite these days that every application software package come with its own suite of data and analytics tools. Salesforce with Tableau, SAP, TIBCO, Zoho, just a few in this category. As SaaS, they're easier to use, but there's a larger emphasis on maximizing your ERP investment, and your mileage may vary. It's a safe bet that Fabric brings more to the table, including Microsoft 365 integration. The final category is agnostic SaaS. This is where independent technology leaders These are independent technology leaders that have earned dedicated user bases and or zealots. Snowflake, Databricks, Palantir, Qlik, these are all wonderful, capable SaaS products that might surpass Fabric in some areas, but none of them have native Microsoft 365 integration. So when you look at it, Fabric's pretty competitive. How did it get this way? An evolutionary process. The first evolution comes with the reinvention of Synapse. Azure Data and Analytics PaaS components have been around for many years, forming what Microsoft called their modern data architecture. This introduced modern concepts like the data lake, data factory, and Spark processing. One of these components that provided dynamic SQL pools was named Synapse Analytics. Microsoft liked the name so much, they used it as the brand name for their new SaaS solution. Each of the PaaS components had their own interface and method of operation. So a big part of the reinvention was the introduction of the studio concept. Instead of having to use tools in isolation, Synapse brought most of them together under one pane of glass, with the goal of making them more accessible and easier to use. The red boxes in the diagram are the components that are combined to create Synapse. This is a very good start, but over time, Microsoft realized they could make something even better if they added other components like Power BI, Azure Data Lake Storage, and Delta Lake. This prompted the next evolution that created Fabric. While Synapse as a product was successful, its progress pales in comparison to the popularity of Power BI as the main provider of data and analytics for most users. In this most recent evolution, they expand their SaaS offering significantly, marrying Synapse Blue with Power BI Yellow to create Fabric Green. But Fabric is more than just this combination. They expand on the Synapse Studio concept by adding the various Fabric experiences to build a comprehensive UI that can be used by all roles. Fabric inherits improved versions of premium features from Power BI and added several new low and no-code options. And finally, they added compelling new components to support things like machine learning, real-time data, governance, and more. As you can see, there's a lot to Fabric. Let's try to boil all of this down to the value proposition. First, it's a SaaS one-stop shop. One system for all roles and an easy entry point for most needs. On the spectrum of capabilities and performance, I would call it a Goldilocks solution. Not too simple, not too complex, it's just right. As a SaaS solution, you do have to come to decisions it makes for you, but delivers better than average capabilities and performance. Gartner has named Microsoft as the market leader in the BI space the last 5 years in a row. And this chart is old. It may now be 6 in a row. And this was even before the advent of Fabric. Main point being, this is a sound investment. Last and certainly not least, Fabric is native to Microsoft 365, which gives it a significant advantage over every other SaaS data and analytics platform. Russ, have any questions come in that we have time to answer?
No immediate questions, no.
All right. We will move on. Well, let's start our deeper dive by exploring OneLake, the foundation of Fabric. What is OneLake? Microsoft defines it simply as one drive for data. Let's take a look at what that means by starting with the concept of a data lake. Up until now, we've had data strewn all across the organization. Databases on-prem and in the cloud, data and files in SharePoint or Teams, sitting in individual workstations or classic file shares. It's being scattered across the organization makes it harder to use for analytics. The core principle of the data lake is centralized storage, so we get everything in one place. Data lakes are built using blob storage from providers like Azure, AWS, or Google, and is inexpensive and virtually limitless. By limitless, we mean that it can hold structured and unstructured data in any quantity of files of any size and type. OneLake takes the data lake concept to the next level. It is durable and reliable. With Azure resources under the covers, it's both highly available and disaster recovery ready. It embraces the one copy concept. One storage layer serves all Fabric experiences, and users can all work on the same data without making copies. It's also essential in implementing a truly modern cloud data architecture, the data lakehouse. What is a data lakehouse and how do we get there? Let's learn about Delta Lake. For the data lake, we solve the first problem, getting the data into one spot. But how do we work with all of these disparate files and data to produce anything useful? Delta Lake is how we can prepare files in a data lake for analytics. The first step is to transform them into a standard format. We took anything to the lake, but we need some common ground if we're going to make any progress. This is done using the Parquet file format. Developed by an Apache project, the format creates a column-oriented data file optimized for efficient storage and retrieval. It supports data compression and encoding, so it can handle complex data in bulk. Once in our common format, the next step is to find a way to make these look and feel like a database. Delta Lake, developed by the Linux Foundation, does this several ways. It adds the ability to declare data types for columns, partitioning for performance, and most importantly, transaction logs. The result? Delta Lake allows data lake files to behave like typical database tables, so it can easily use them for analytics. With Delta Lake, you get a SQL endpoint for queries, relational database CRUD, ACID transactions, data versioning and time travel, batch processing to enable traditional ETL, and you get support for something traditional databases used to struggle with, streaming data. The diagram on the right shows an example of a Delta table. A CSV file transformed into Parquet creates a directory in the data lake named for the file. In this case, is IoT device data. A view of the Delta table reveals the data type columns, an improvement over CSV. The Delta table is actually supported by two sets of files, the data partitioned into a series of Parquet files in the table directory, and a series of JSON transaction files in a special subdirectory called Delta log. This is what enables the database-like characteristics. Now that we can work with lake files as we would a database, we have what we need to create the data lakehouse. Peanut butter and chocolate, ice cream and pie, bacon and most things. All right, I'm getting hungry. It is lunchtime. Point is, we're combining things that are good on their own, be even better together. And that's what you get with a data lake house. The flexibility of a data lake and the structure of a data warehouse. The lake's a voluminous place ready for big data and real-time streaming. And in the same place, Delta Lake enables a data warehouse that looks very familiar and is ready for building analytics with the same techniques we've been using for a long time. The concept was pioneered by Databricks, which was designed to work with any cloud. Microsoft implemented with Azure resources to create Azure Databricks, a popular PaaS component of the modern data architecture. Next generation Fabric Lakehouses are intended to be easier to use with low-code development options and integration with other Fabric experiences like Power BI. Now we understand what a data lakehouse is and what it can do, let's take a look at some of the unique features of OneLake. As much as Microsoft might want you to literally put everything in OneLake, they realize this isn't practical. In response, they've added a feature called shortcuts. This allows Fabric to engage with data no matter where it resides. Symbolic links to data source locations work in two different ways. Inside of OneLake, they create pointers to simplify the access to data sets and warehouses across workspaces, domains, without moving data. Outside of OneLake, they provide access to existing Azure data lakes, the Dataverse, or even data hosted in other clouds like Amazon or Google. The result, virtualized data access across workspaces, domains, and clouds. Why is this valuable? With less moving around, it's easier to know you're working with the right stuff. Your legacy efforts are not lost. They can be folded into new work done within OneLake and Fabric. And they enable cross-database querying, a powerful way to seamlessly connect different data sources. This sounds fantastic, but as a technology and database veteran, I start to wonder about consistent performance, especially when you venture out of the Microsoft cloud. Have no fear, OneLake has another option, mirroring. While shortcuts give you a way to work with data outside of OneLake, mirroring gives you a very easy way to get things into OneLake. Mirroring provides near real-time replication in the Fabric without ETL. This drastically simplifies the process of adding structured data to your OneLake. Data from proprietary systems can now be accessible by all Fabric experiences and engines without affecting the source. This maintains isolation for operational data and prevents analytics from negatively affecting performance. Running even real-time reports won't bog down production. Right now, the service is limited to Azure SQL, Azure Cosmos, SQL Server, and Snowflake. Expect connection to other change data capture compatible database platforms in the future. So how does this work? The mirroring service monitors the transaction log of the source database. It identifies when data changes and then automatically converts that to Parquet format and transmits it to the Delta Lake tables in OneLake, where they are then accessible by all the Fabric experiences. The last feature I want to show you helps you navigate your OneLake. The OneLake Data Hub provides visibility to all your Fabric data. Always accessible from the left rail in Fabric, the Data Hub has several features. At the top is a gallery for your recommended and most recently used items. This is followed by a list of OneLake assets organized by workspace and domain. The list is filterable on several criteria to help you find what you're looking for. Every item has an ellipsis menu that presents the list of next actions you can take. So now you understand a lot more about how OneLake gets all your data usable in one place. We're ready to see how it will work in Fabric experiences. Before we explore those, Russ, are there any questions you have time to answer?
There have been a few questions, and one goes back I missed from the original section, and it was just how does Fabric coexist with Microsoft Path?
It's a great question, and Microsoft hasn't answered. So their answer is all of the PaaS components will continue to function as they do now. They're offering this SaaS as a convenience layer over those, and they'll continue to work with them seamlessly going forward.
There are a few flavors of this question. It seems like mirroring was a hot topic, but can mirrored databases participate in cross-database queries?
Yes, once it's in OneLake, it can cross database query with anything that's native, mirrored, or done by shortcut.
Cool. That's it for now.
All right, we'll move on. As a comprehensive UI, Fabric provides many experiences to work with data and analytics. Let's take a look at what you get. The typical entry point into Fabric is through the Power BI experience. Once in Power BI, you will find the Power BI logo at the bottom of the left rail. This logo opens the Fabric selector that lets you choose your experience. Note that the selector logo will change to reflect where you are. For example, when we select Data Factory, the selector logo changes to Data Factory, and so on. On the selector panel, you will see the Microsoft Fabric link that opens this page. Like the selector, the Fabric homepage has links for Fabric experiences and even more useful links to find documentation and connect with the community. Let's take a look at the Power BI experience. Power BI is a unified, scalable platform for self-service and enterprise business intelligence. And that was even before it's evolved into Fabric. Basically, it's the same data visualization tool we know and love, though the color scheme changes from yellow to Fabric green. We would need many more hours to go into all the capabilities of Power BI, but it's worth recapping the key features. Interactive data visualizations. This really helps data tell a story, a whole different world from the days of tabular reports. It integrates with everything. It's ubiquitous. Microsoft uses it everywhere, and you can add Power BI to almost anything. Dashboards and natural language queries. This is AI before it was cool. Type a question about your data and it'll respond. And on the mobile app, you can literally ask it questions. It connects to everything in the cloud, and with gateways, you can get to everything on the ground as well. Cloud-based and desktop development tools provide multiple options for building reports depending on your intensity. It has data curation to enable self-service, so you can share data and reports and find things on your own. And last but not least, you get a first-class mobile experience. Get data and analytics wherever you are. It's a great time to be alive. As we mentioned earlier, all the rules in Power BI have Power BI as their starting point in Fabric. While Fabric is based on a lot of existing Power BI functionality, there's one new feature worth mentioning: direct lake queries. Direct lake mode in Power BI provides the capability for analyzing very large data volumes. This is made possible by the advent of OneLake and is done by loading Delta Lake data directly into the Power BI engine. This is especially useful when we want to work with real-time streaming data. This is an improvement over standard Power BI import mode, where the data is loaded into a cloud-based cache. While the cache ensures that the data visualization widgets perform well, it's only refreshed every few hours, which does not make much things in real time. Direct Lake is also an improvement over the earlier Direct Query option. Direct Query allowed you to connect directly to the underlying data source instead of the cache, so you could get real-time information. Unfortunately, performance was inconsistent, could be adversely affected by a number of factors: network health, server capacity, database query load. Direct Lake mode is a great example of how building a state-of-the-art foundation for Fabric enables cool new capabilities. Let's move on to the next experience, Data Factory. The Data Factory experience provides a couple of options. Dataflow Gen 2 is a no-code interface for building data transformations for data anywhere in the Fabric ecosystem. Users will find the point-and-click visual development experience familiar, as it was built on Power Query Online feature in Power BI. This tool empowers users who understand business data participate in the ETL process, even if they don't have the skills required for traditional ETL development. When this concept was in Power BI, the top presentation layer, there was a tendency for users to create their own one-off transformations when building specific reports. Different users might create the same transformations without realizing it. Moving into the Data Factory experience has the effect of pushing data transformations down into the infrastructure. It's the best of both worlds scenario. The artifact created with the user-friendly visual tool can more easily share with others to improve consistency and productivity. While it's likely that this will mainly be used by citizen developers, seasoned analysts and developers might enjoy having this as a quick and easy option. For more savvy users, the Data Factory experience also lets you create data pipelines. While smaller scale transformations can be built with Dataflow Gen 2, data pipelines are used to define, schedule, and orchestrate data flows that can refresh data at a massive scale. This is a well-established technology capable of handling even the most complex and large-scale transformations. Its origins can be traced back to SQL Server integration services, Azure Data Factory, and Synapse pipelines. The visual design canvas helps developers envision the process and allows them to incorporate sophisticated control flow logic to build complex transformations. Data pipelines are even more powerful because they can incorporate elements from other Fabric experiences. Go modular by adding other data pipelines, invoke your Gen 2 data flows that were also built in Data Factory, execute SQL scripts or store procedures from Data Warehouse, or employ Spark notebooks and jobs in data engineering and data science. Given the sophistication of the components involved, this experience will normally be limited to your skilled data professionals. But for even more capabilities, Fabric provides the data engineering experience. Traditional data processing has relied on a set of tools suitable for relational database platforms: SQL scripts, stored procedures, and triggers. With our move to more modern ways of storing data, like Delta tables and a data lake, we need to have a more modern tool set. Data engineering in Fabric uses Apache Spark, a massively parallel processing engine, to meet those needs. Fabric uses pre-configured Spark tools to provide processing capacity and hide the complexity of managing required infrastructure. The data engineering experience provides the user interface for Spark processing. Notebooks provide the interactive development environment. Instead of classic SQL scripts and stored procedures, you can use more powerful coding options to query, transform, visualize, and write data. Users can choose between Python, R, Scala, and Spark SQL, and use third-party libraries. Notebooks can also be integrated with Azure DevOps for source code control and deployment automation. Jobs allow code developed in notebooks to be scheduled for batch execution. As you might imagine, this more sophisticated code-centric approach is typically the domain of data engineers. Data scientists will also take advantage of Fabric Spark integration in their own experience. While most aspects of data science are extraordinarily complex, the underlying desire is actually quite simple. Use data to make informed decisions. This can be as simple as helping figure out how much product to stock to meet demand while avoiding waste, or figure out what your customers want so you can target them with personalized offers. To get the best possible results, you want to try and advance on the analytics maturity curve. We start at the foundational stage. Where is our data? We need to get the raw information to begin the process. Next is descriptive. What happened? These are reports built on the data collected. Then diagnostic. Why did it happen? Connecting information from reports to determine a root cause. Our tools today have done a pretty good job up to this point, but to keep going, we need to use data science to develop machine learning. This will get us through the next stages. Predictive. What's likely to happen? Can we predict the future based on past results? Prescriptive. How can we make something happen? Understanding how to create desirable conditions. And finally, cognitive. Simulating human thought, getting the system to be an active participant in making decisions. The complex task of developing machine learning has historically required dedicated tools and environments, separate from the typical data analytics work. Fabric brings this specialized process into the fold so everyone can work in the same place and take advantage of the same infrastructure. The data science experience provides the ability to produce full-featured end-to-end data science workflows. OneLake holds both the source data and the results ready for use in Power BI reports. Spark notebooks are used to explore data and build machine learning models. MLflow is used to create, run, and track experiments. This topic is way too complicated to discuss now in detail, but I did want to give you a glimpse into the data science process by showing you Data Wrangler. The 5 typical steps in the data science process, we'll look at the third that focuses on preparing the data. In the past, you'd run queries, get back a bunch of rows, try to inspect the data, probably dump it into Excel. If you had time, you might try to build some reports to help visualize it. Then you have to go back and forth to try and figure out what story the data is trying to tell you. This ad hoc approach can be disjointed and might not be that effective. In Fabric, the Data Wrangler tool uses a variety of statistical tools, visualizations, and code in a cohesive experience to interactively explore, evaluate, and transform data. This more refined approach provides efficiency that improves the whole process. Where the future certainly seems to be tied to data science, let's take a look at a Fabric experience that leverages a more classic approach. It's easy to get dazzled by the potential of all these futuristic advances in data analytics, but if you're old school like me, you still understand the value that can be delivered by tried and true technologies. Your organization may have already invested in sophisticated data warehouses. Your team may already be stocked with skilled experts who might not be as enamored with newfangled ideas. To address these very real needs, Fabric includes the data warehouse experience, which lets you create a traditional enterprise data warehouse with full transactional SQL capabilities. For the most part, users of Fabric Data Warehouse will not notice that under the covers, it is in fact using Fabric's modern infrastructure instead of a traditional SQL product. The data warehouse user is in full control of creating, loading, and transforming the entirety of the warehouse. Build star Snowflake schemas and embrace the medallion architecture in the same environment using lakehouses and other modern features. And you can cross-database query with those elements as well, connecting the classic to the modern. Best of all, there's no need to worry about tuning. This virtual warehouse will scale on its own. Let's take a close look at how warehouses compare to lakehouses. Lakehouse versus warehouse, how do you decide? There are some questions that should be asked to help figure it out. What are the skill sets of the teams developing and supporting a solution? Are they old school or new school? What other solutions already been built? Do you need to be sure not to rock the boat, or is it time for change? Does it need to work with unstructured data like documents? Who needs to use the finished product? Is it for engineers working in machine learning, or does it need to be simple so it can be accessed by business consumers? Do you need flexible or fully defined structure? Are there benefits to having structure on demand, or is there more value in getting things set in stone? As it turns out, you might not have to decide. You can use both as needed for different purposes. With Fabric, they get treated as equals and can take advantage of the same things. Let's get back to the cool new stuff with real-time analytics. Real-time analytics have become essential in many scenarios of the enterprise world. Asset tracking, customer experience, environmental monitoring, and more. What all of these scenarios have in common is an extraordinary amount of information, even petabytes, that may or may not be well structured. The challenge is to provide the performance and capacity to work with this data in an approachable tool set that can leverage other data and analytics efforts. Towards that end, the real-time analytics experience is a fully managed big data analytics platform optimizing for streaming and real-time series data. The experience is built around the custom query language, or KQL engine, which provides exceptional performance for searching gigantic amounts of structured or unstructured data. Data loaded in the KQL database can be accessed in one lake and is exposed to other Fabric experiences. The KQL query set can save and share queries that can be used to generate Power BI reports. The Event Stream tool even provides a no-code experience for capturing, transforming, and routing real-time events. Let's take a closer look at Event Stream. Event Stream is a Microsoft Fabric feature that lets you handle real-time events without coding. It provides drag and drop simplicity for establishing sources for events, processing the data by aggregating, filtering, transforming, or even linking to other event streams, and routing data to multiple Fabric destinations. Users can visualize the process with an end-to-end data flow diagram, while the preview function allows you to see data and processing in flight. You can use sample data to see how it works, and then connect to Azure Event or IoT hubs or a custom app. More sources are on the way. The end result, real-time analytics is much more accessible with an interface that reduces the need for deep technical skills. Let's take a look at another Fabric experience relating to real-time activity, Data Activator. Still in preview, Data Activator is a no-code digital nervous system that monitors changing data conditions to automatically take action without needing human intervention. Users in Data Activator create a reflex that holds all the information necessary to connect to the data, monitor for conditions, and then act by sending messages or triggering workflows. There are lots of situations where you might use a reflex. Run ads automatically when same-store sales decline. Alert the logistics team when issues are found in the package tracking process. Notify the marketing team when a new campaign hits a user response milestone. Let's explore how a reflex works using the package tracking scenario. We'll start with objects. These can be tangible objects or abstract concepts like campaigns, anything that can have status events. In this case, packages are the objects. Next, we have events. Data sources produce a sequence of observation or status events for a particular object. In our case, these are the logs that do things like delivery timestamps and acceptance signatures. Next, triggers. These monitor your events and data, initiating specified actions once certain conditions are met. In this case, we're looking for a pattern of late deliveries and we'll be notifying the logistics team. Finally, we have properties. These provide extra information about the objects and events that can help provide context for triggered actions. When we notify about the late packaging stats, we want to include information on weight of the package and the type of transport required. The result, we put reflexes to work watching and waiting for important things, and then they just let us know when something important needs to be done. In this diagram, you see that Power BI can be used as an event source. Let's take a closer look at that scenario. Power BI reflexes. The ellipsis menu on a data visualization widget in a Power BI report will display a menu that shows the ability to set an alert. This brings up a panel that gathers information on what measure to watch, when to check, the threshold to watch for, and how to notify someone. When you click Create Alert, Fabric takes the information supplied and creates a reflex object in Data Activator. In the design surface, we'll see that the Select section, what events we're watching, and Detect, what to look for, have already been filled in. We'll just need that information to set to the Act section. We chose email, so we'll just need to add recipients and craft the message that will be sent, which can include those properties from the object or event. This is pretty powerful. Let's take a look at a real-world example. I have a client whose users adopted a daily report review process. Every midnight, their data warehouse was updated to include the previous day's data. Then a periodic data set refresh would pick up these changes a couple of hours later after it finished. The subscription service sends a generated report to the user by email. In the morning, the user reviews that report to see if anything important happened. More times than not, there was nothing actionable, and the effort spent checking was basically wasted. If they did find something they needed to take action, they had to find it themselves, and news was likely a day late. So let's refactor that process using Fabric and Data Activator. We now have the ability to update that report to use a real-time data source, so the report catches important data changes right away. Then we set an alert on the Power BI report to inform when the action is needed. This builds the reflex. The reflex trigger is fired when the right conditions are met, and the user gets a Teams chat about the situation. So instead of waiting a day and spending the morning pouring over reports, we now get near real-time notification when there's something important that needs action. So now, instead of having to reach into the data to find something important, reflexes give the data an opportunity to reach out to you. Just one more Fabric experience to review. The newest entry in the Fabric selector, Microsoft has started offering industry solutions. Using the insights gleaned from their wide client base, they have crafted pre-built versions of useful solutions using Fabric components to address the needs of specific industries. The initial offering was focused on sustainability or ESG, and currently in preview are pre-built solutions for retail operations. Both of these demonstrate the range of what you can do in Fabric and may offer a solution that needs only minor adjustment to be immediately useful. And that brings us to the end of our introduction to Fabric experiences. Russ, have any questions come in?
Yeah, there's a couple. For the sake of time, I'm just going to grab one. Could Data Activator be used with Kafka or the Confluent service?
Yeah, absolutely. Those are great real-time data sources. You would use a connector to hook up to the Kafka topics. That would then route your data to into a Delta table, and then you could use that as the source for an activator to then check for the changes in the data that comes in. Great question. All right, so Fabric sounds great, but wait, there's more. Let's take a look at some other features. It seems everywhere you look, someone's talking about AI. In the Microsoft world, that often translates to talking about Copilot, their framework for integrating AI to improve user experience and productivity. Last time I checked, there were 34 different Copilots being offered. It's a safe bet that new ones are being added as we speak. There are several Fabric experience Copilots of note. First, Power BI. My favorite is the button that says, build me a report based on the data. More often than not, it does a pretty decent job in about 15 seconds. Not a perfect report, but with a few modifications, you get something useful right away. You can also get help writing report summaries and doing technical tasks like writing DAX queries. Data Factory Copilots help with the mundane day-to-day data wrangling tasks, like creating data connections, generating data transformation steps, or summarizing queries. Our data professionals in data science and engineering get things like code suggestion and completion, data analysis, and developing analytical models. There's a function we can literally ask Copilot to look at a data frame and provide a useful chart, the kind of thing you might ask a coworker if they had time. These all offer a lot of value, and it's safe to expect that to increase as Copilot functionality is rolled out. More important to note, you do need to hit a licensing level to take advantage of these tools. We'll get into that more shortly. Now let's move on to everyone's favorite data subject, security and governance. The starting point for security governance in Fabric comes from its foundation and evolution. Entra ID, formerly known as Azure Active Directory, is the backbone of access control in Fabric, literally the same user IDs and groups established for use with the rest of Microsoft 365. This is that payoff for being the only SaaS data product native to Microsoft 365. Everything with security works exactly as it does for everything else in your digital workplace. We get the workspace concept from Power BI so that we can concentrate data activities for convenience and governance. The lineage view we see here creates a map of data sources and the relationships in the workspace. This helps users understand a flow of data so they can know where information comes from. We also get to use familiar roles within the workspace, making it easy to grant users the right authority. Certifications and endorsements. This gives us the ability to promote and certify data items so users can find the right data easily. Fabric takes the workspace concept to a new level with the concept of domains. Domains are a new way to organize workspaces in a tenant. Before domains, we had a plethora of workspaces that were presented alphabetically, even though there are relationships and common users between them. Pretty common occurrence in Power BI, go add the new finance guy to the 3 workspaces he's going to need. In this diagram, you'll see 9 individual workspaces. With the domain model, they're now grouped by their business function and managed independently by the respective domain admins. We get the isolation needed for focus while still being part of the same overall system. With domains, not only do we get a logical grouping of related workspaces, we also get to delegate control. As domain admins have autonomy to control their own domain and its workspaces. They can manage their own data assets and govern access control. They can specify their own certifiers and endorsements. And admins can also break their domain up into subdomains. It's important to note that subdomains are governed by the domain admin. There are no subdomain admins. This logical grouping makes it easier for users to navigate their work in Fabric experiences, allowing them to select a focus rather than having to wade through all the things they have access to. There's a lot of ways you can break these down into domains. Our example was business function. You could easily have gone by geography, US, Europe, South America, by life cycle levels, sandbox, production testing, or sales mode, wholesale, retail, broker. Possibilities are endless. If we want even more governance opportunities, we'll talk about Purview. The Purview product has gone through a few different evolutions. Originally named Azure Purview when it was a data estate mapping tool, it morphed to become Microsoft's flagship product for information protection and data governance. The size and scope of this product was a little daunting, and as a result, did not get the expected adoption. With Microsoft rolling functionality into Fabric, it made sense to put a new emphasis on the tool and make it more accessible. This integration is still in preview, but the key features include the ability to apply sensitivity labels to protect data across clouds, apps, and devices, identify data risks, and manage regulatory compliance requirements, create an up-to-date map of your entire data state with data classification and end-to-end lineage, and generate insights about how your data is stored and used. Integrating Purview with Fabric truly takes security and governance to the next level. There's one more topic to touch on. Before we go to our live guided tour. Every system has an admin portal, but for Fabric, this continues to grow and evolve. You can access the admin portal link in the governance and insights section on the gear menu. What I wanted to point out was all the new item markers and the section at the top of the screen that highlights new tenant settings. As Fabric grows and matures, expect the admin experience to follow suit. This is both a blessing and curse of a continuously improving product. Lots of new things coming online, but the management experience keeps changing too. Russ, have any questions come in? We have time to answer?
Yeah, just general questions on the difference between Fabric and Mesh.
So data fabric is based on a centralized concept. You see our one leg putting everything in one place. Data mesh is a decentralized way of organizing things. And that's sort of opposite, but there's sort of a nod given to it domains where you can have that isolation and allow people to work independently while still being part of the bigger group. Good question. All right, so let's take a look at Fabric. So we'll start off by going to our office.com where we go to our waffle. And when we go open the waffle, we might be a little bit alarmed. At least I was the first time I saw it where there was no Fabric icon. But remember, Power BI is the starting point for everything. So we'll use Power BI to get into Fabric. And when you click it, you'll see that we're now in our same Power BI interface, except everything is green. I actually am going to switch to my other tab because I have some stuff preset. There we go. All right. So let's take a closer look at Power BI. We're going to go look at our revenue by item report. So this looks just like we did in the past. It was a fancy report I used for this demo. But when we go to our menu, oops. Well, something needs to go wrong and eat. Oh, it's at the bottom. Here we go. Here's where we go to menu where we see set alert. So on this, we're going to go say, let's take a look at this quantity. And we're going to say if there's an issue if this becomes less than 100. We're going to set it by email, and then we're going to go add this to actually an existing reflex. We're going to create our alert. It'll take just a second. And once it's done, we can go view our alert. Now, when we click on that, you'll notice that we get moved into the data activator. So our logo changed to be data activator. And you'll see we've got as we look at our panels, now this isn't live data, so there's not a lot of stuff to watch, but our select section is all set, our detect is all set, and then we would just fill in the details for the action that we're going to set. All right, so let's take a very quick look at our selector. So remember, as we go to different experiences, our selector logo changes, but when you click it, you can then get to any of the experiences that you need. We'll go to the Fabric homepage very quickly. You see that we have our links to the experiences at the bottom to get to the documentation and community. And there's a ton of stuff there, very valuable to look over as you're going through things. All right. So now let's go take a look at what one of the data flow Gen 2. So we're going to go to our workspace, the Fabric demo, and we're going to go take a look at our discount data flow. And I did this ahead of time just so you can sort of see what's happening. Second to load. So we were working with our products table. It came in and I was able to go and very quickly with code, without code, go in and add a column. I said, well, let's make me a discount price. It takes my list and multiplies by 90%. And so all of that was done point and click. Now very easily I have all this done. Now you can do it in the Power Query language, but the visual tool makes it a lot simpler to use. All right, so now we're going to move over to the data engineering experience. Now, something that I also want to point out is, as we work with different items, the left rail adds convenience links. So as I was in the report, it added that. This is a nice way to be able to keep track of the things that you're on. Note this is only holds about 10 different items, so at some point you'll be asked to remove some, but it is a nice convenient feature. So we'll look at our notebook. Yes, close that. Go to our notebook. So what I want to show you here was Spark in action. So this is a Spark notebook. On one hand, it looks a little familiar to a lot of the data scripting I've done over the years, but there's some differences in it. So you'll see the notebook is broken up into different sections. When you open a notebook, it's going to show you the steps that you had defined and then the last execution of that, what those results ended up being. So we're going to actually run a couple of these. This guy will take a quick second. And this is going and getting some data from the lake and preparing a data frame. See it do its work. Fantastic. So then what we'll do is I'm going to very quickly clear up it so you can see it's running again. We'll go display our data that we just loaded in. And what's cool here is we get this guy back where it is showing our table of all the information that's there. But built right in is, oh, hey, let's look at the chart. Now, this is not a very exciting chart. But you can get much more complicated and you can bring in other libraries to make more interesting charts along the way. So working in this notebook, I'm able to load data, query, do some visualizations right from working inside of it. Next thing I want to show, we talked about our data wrangler. So we'll go up to data for this notebook and you'll see this option, transform data frame to data wrangler. So we'll do that. It's going to go pick up the data frame that we have. And it'll take a couple seconds to load, but this is bringing in the data set that I was attached to. And I'm able to preset a bunch of different visualizations and statistics, that kind of stuff. So you can see all these different charts that automatically get set. And then there's a code option operation below. So you can be doing your data science in this nice interactive experience. No, you can take it to Excel, but you don't have to. And it's just all in one spot. So I thought that was kind of a nice thing for data science. All right, so let's take a quick look at data lakehouses and data warehouse. So we'll go to our warehouse first. And what I want to show you is if you look down this panel, you'll see all the same familiar things. For anyone who's been working in SQL a long time, you'll see the same kinds of concepts. You'll see our model that we have, and then queries. Now, what's cool with the query is I'm going to go bring up my demo query, and we'll go run this. Now, this looks like normal SQL, and you can connect SQL Server Management Studio to this and do these things the same way, but working this interface, I get some cool things. I ran my query, I got the data back, a new feature, and the new things keep coming around all the time. I have to highlight this query and I go explore this data in preview. So right from working inside of my warehouse, this is going to allow me to build some Power BI visualizations that I can look at or throw away. So we'll see that. We'll pick month name and sales revenue. And all of a sudden we have a chart. Now, this is not the most fancy one, but you can see it's pretty easy to go right from a result set into, hey, this is what this looks like. You can save this off or go and push it into a report. So that's the idea of working all of these experiences in together. All right. Last thing I want to show is close to the last thing is I want to show you the lake house. Oop, this is the lake house one. Oop, I got to bail out. Yeah, Don't save. All right, so we'll take a quick look at the lakehouse. What I want to show here is we have our delta tables. You'll see this little triangle icon, the delta that identifies that. We had our good buddy IoT device data. And when we look at it, we see our data with our type columns. I think actually order shows a bit more exciting stuff where you see where we're getting the data types. And then what I also want to show you is there's a file view, which says, hey, under the covers, these are the Parquet files that are holding that data. And there's our Delta log directory with our transaction logs. And you can then work with this guy with the SQL endpoint to run queries. And so now we have our lakehouse and our warehouse right next to each other. You can even write a query that went from this lakehouse against the warehouse to bring back results. The last thing I want to show you is the admin portal. And we go into admin portal, again, see all the new markers, they keep coming. We'll go into domains very quickly. Now in our example, we had stuff broken up by business function. So I made a domain for finance. Now in the picture, I made workspaces for accounts receivable, payable, and forecasting. Here I made subdomains that did that. But then you can attach workspaces at this finance level or in the subdomain. And remember, we can dedicate finance domain admins, and they have control over all the subdomains. So a lot of power and ways you can organize this. We had one client where they had 1,200 workspaces. So if you were somebody who had any kind of authority in the data analytics space or any type of management, you had workspaces everywhere. So this domain concept and subdomains does a really nice job of helping you organize this stuff and make it easier to consume. And you can control a lot of things based on the performance that you're using for a given domain and workspace. And there's a lot of cool things you can set there. That brings us to the end of our live demo. So I'm going to bring back our screens. All right. I hope that was enlightening. There was a lot to absorb, might be a bit overwhelming. So where do we go from here? I've outlined some next steps and how you can proceed. First, let's get an idea of what this thing is going to cost. Next, we'll evaluate what value Fabric can provide your organization. Then we'll want to decide on the many, many options. You'll probably want to get some help from experts. And finally, you probably want to also learn even more about Fabric. With Fabric, Microsoft made an attempt to simplify licensing with what I would call mixed results. We'll go through the basics first. While it's possible to pay for just Power BI licensing and use traditional data sources and use the Power BI experience in Fabric, the real value is to be able to use all of the experiences together. And for this, you need to have both capacity and user licenses. Capacity licensing is needed because all the Fabric experiences are using a shared processing resources. So generally, the larger organization, the larger capacity you're going to need. While there is a Fabric free license, just like with Power BI, to get real functionality, you should consider Power BI Pro as the base user license. If you have Power BI Premium capacity SKUs, these do translate to Fabric, but there's no equivalent, unfortunately, for Premium per user. We're still in pay-as-you-go mode, but soon there'll be opportunity to save 41% with reservation pricing. And you get the ball rolling with a free 60-day trial, where you get to kick the tires on a full F64 level functionality. Look at the chart, you'll see the green bar marks the sweet spot, the place where you only need Power BI Pro licenses for report producers, and Copilot gets enabled. Note that if you go the reservation route, the monthly cost for an F64 is actually cheaper than the $5K you would pay for the minimum Power BI Premium capacity SKU. Above the green line, you'll need to buy Power BI Pro licenses for producers and consumers. But remember that if you have E5 licenses, you already have met the Power BI Pro requirement. Now, list other costs for completeness, but as you can see, they're pretty low. Storage is dirt cheap at 23 a terabyte a month, and your purview charges will most likely resemble rounding errors. My advice, you have to view this as an investment in a valuable product. Prices seem high until you break it down by user and understand the value. For example, Power BI Pro is $10 a month per user. That's 33 cents a day per person for powerful data analytics everywhere. That's an amazing value. Second, start small and ramp up as needed. You'll get teased with a 60-day trial, but remember, you'll have to commit to a pretty big amount if you want to keep it that level. Perfectly good to keep your proof of concept at F2 and see it in action before making a big commitment. And finally, you got to contact your Microsoft representative. Your costs can vary by geographic location and your relationship with Microsoft. Now that you understand the cost, let's take time to figure out if there is value for Fabric in your organization. So no two organizations are the same, so there's no simple answer. As always, it depends. The Fabric value proposition seems pretty compelling. SaaS one-stop shop is an easy entry point for most organizations and users. There's solid functionality, a convenience layer built over existing technologies. Does do everything, but it does a lot. Native M365 integration is one of its distinguishing characteristics and very hard to beat. And then by design, Fabric fits in your digital workplace. We saw a lot of innovation. Some of this shows up as making existing complicated things easy, but also with new ideas like data activator. And finally, fast ROI. The simplicity of SaaS, a generous trial period, and pre-built solutions, it won't take too long to get Fabric producing real results. But it's not for everyone. The chart shows the top 5 reasons people feel Fabric won't help. They have performance or specialization needs that can only be tackled by PaaS. They've sunk a ton of money into something else. They have a team that already knows another tool. My personal favorite, our current analytics deliver the business everything it needs. No need to improve. Or simply, we don't like change. For each reason, there are questions that should be considered to validate the reason, or maybe determine that it is worth giving Fabric a chance. Fabric is not one size fits all. There's a lot of different ways it can be used to meet your needs and things you can decide. So we'll have to decide on options. Choose your intensity. What fits your team? Is it low code to enable power user SMEs, hardcore for your existing data pros, or do you need to take advantage of tried and true technologies? Are you going to interoperate? What makes the most sense? Do you shortcut to sources outside or mirror to bring it into the fold easily? Your proof of concept, there's 2 roads you could follow. Let's tackle something completely new that might be out of the wheelhouse of your current solution. Or maybe it's better to replicate some existing analytics in Fabric so you can compare them apples to apples. Once your POC is done, it's time to think about your future footprint. Do you go all in and migrate everything? Or does it make more sense to use a hybrid approach where you use Fabric in concert with other tools? So many things to consider. It might make sense to get help from some experts. Getting started with help from experts can make a real difference. Our team of Fabric specialists can work with you to identify areas of business that would benefit from this innovative technology and help demonstrate its potential value. It's easy to get started with a Fabric strategy session. A half or full day effort at no cost to you will review what your current landscape looks like so we can evaluate the options and opportunities. Figure out what makes the most sense for your specific situation. We'll plan out a proof of value project that uses a real business need to demonstrate how Fabric can provide value. From there, we can execute that proof of value project. The duration and cost will vary by the scope determined in the strategy session, but improving will help you create your first Fabric implementation to support that specific need, really making the most of that 60-day trial. We'll deliver that initial functionality in Fabric to give you both a live working tool for your business and validate the decision to use Fabric. And learning from the process will help you prepare an approach to help replicate that success to fulfill other needs. If you're interested, we can make contact after this session and work through the details. Finally, let's see where you can learn more about Fabric. We'll share this deck after this session so you can access these links to continue investigating Fabric on your own. I've given you easy access to the official Microsoft marketing site, a great learning path, the 60-day trial, Fabric homepage, roadmaps to the Fabric product, and the process of Fabric adoption roadmap. In addition, I included links to learn more about Apache Spark, Delta Lake, and a book by data legend Bill Inman that gives even more insight on building the data lakehouse. And with that, we come to the end of our very long road. Russ, any questions that come in? We can answer.
Yeah, nice timing, actually. There's a couple. Let me kind of give you what I think is an easy one. The person wants to know, what do they do if they have Power BI Premium, but on a per user licensing?
Yeah, unfortunately, premium per user does not translate into Fabric, but the difference is some of the features that you had select premium features, you can now get those features and more with very inexpensive levels of capacity licensing. So you'll get some of those features with your F2, F4s that you before had to go with the big SKU. So not perfect, but they do give you an option.
Cool. And then another one, this one, yeah, cool. This one kind of encapsulates a few of them. So, and it just came in, so I'm just trying to distill it into a couple, but so they're struggling with understanding the value of native M365 integration that helps separate the offering from what they already own Databricks, what Databricks already offers. And some of the other questions I'm seeing related to this is if they already own components on separate software, but there's the suite of the Fabric, what's the value in just using pieces of the Fabric and integrating into their existing data lakes or other tools they have.
Yeah, and that's where we talk about this is it's an optional layer on top of things. You can use those same things within Fabric. You can move things in. For some are easier to move than others. The integration with 365 is really, it's working with your teams. It's working with your SharePoint, all the same way you organize everything else. If you're a Microsoft shop, it's almost a no-brainer. And Microsoft sort of leads you down that path by making Power BI that default experience and carrying you in. If you were already a big Databricks Azure Databricks user, you're probably going to stay in the same area. But maybe there's some aspects of some Power BI stuff, or maybe there's some of the new low-code things for ancillary operations or things that you can work in as well. So that's one of those situations where that hybrid concept might apply.
Yeah, I think that covers it. There's some nuances to that question. So what I would encourage folks is if you have questions, please reply to Rob or I, and we'll follow up with you with a little bit more detail. I tried to capture and distill some of the same concepts into there, but I know we didn't hit on, kind of the deeper dive of everybody's questions. And we are officially 1 minute over. So I want to respect everyone's time and thank you, Rob, for the great presentation, and thank everyone for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of the day, and we look forward to hearing your feedback.